Mpirical provide compelling, interactive learning across a range of delivery options. Live on site, live online, or online anytime, we have a training course that is ideal for you. For a no-obligations chat about your training requirements, contact us at mpirical.com.
The 5G specifications have introduced a whole raft of new techniques and technologies into the mobile landscape, not least of which is the use of APIs, specifically application programming interfaces based on the RESTful design framework. So in this session, we're going to consider exactly what an application programming interface is. We'll also apply this to the notion of REST, or representational state transfer. Included in that is a discussion of RESTful web services. Now, as mentioned, the 5G network will be using APIs. Specifically, it's actually the 5G core control plane. So many of the control elements of the 5G core will interact by exchanging API calls with one another. An additional area for API usage, though, is capability exposure. And this is the notion of third-party applications and services actually accessing resources associated with the 5G core network. And again, this will be based on an agreed set of APIs. But what exactly is an API? Well, you can find lots of definitions of what an API is. Here is one example which sums up nicely the concept. So an API is a set of functions and procedures that allow the creation of applications which access the features or data of an operating system, an application, or another service. It's not a standardized protocol or anything like that. APIs are actually used in all manner of different scenarios. Obviously, the World Wide Web is a huge user, shall we say, of APIs, but they are used in many other different scenarios, including, of course, the 5G core network. Now, the point to note about the 5G core network in terms of the APIs that are used, they are based on the RESTful design model. So let's talk a little bit more about RESTful and REST itself. So first of all, what exactly is REST? Remember, it stands for representational state transfer. It actually came about back in 2000 through a dissertation from Roy Fielding. And you can see that REST is a set of principles, properties and constraints which define an architectural style for the design of web services. It is not in and of itself a protocol. It is a set of principles and a set of design concepts which any designer of web services should really use and strive to utilize to ensure that the resultant service that they create is effectively a RESTful web service. When you call something a RESTful web service, it means it is compliant with the RESTful principles of design. Now, some of the common characteristics of REST include the likes of the fact that interaction, API interaction, which is based on RESTful between a client and a server, is actually based on stateless protocol interaction. So what that means is the server that would be handling the request does not maintain any state related to the request. In turn, that means that any requests that get sent to a server must contain all of the information they could possibly require for the server to actually fulfill the request itself. You can see that largely RESTful APIs are HTTP based. So it's HTTP that is actually carrying the REST application information. And then finally, you're typically centered around a standard set of operations, and that's particularly applicable to the 5G core network and the way that the 5G core network uses RESTful APIs. Now, those standard operations include create, read, update, and delete. There are other variations, but it really depends on the context in which the API is actually being used. Now, by having a standard set of principles and guidelines, the idea is to create web services with specific characteristics. Characteristics like high performance and high efficiency, characteristics like high scalability, and then finally simplicity of design. And fundamentally, Roy Fielding dictated 6 RESTful principles which, if they're all adhered to, you will end up creating a web service with these characteristics as appropriate. So just to explore this notion of a web service in more detail, here we've got a requesting entity and a web service.
Need to know more? Why not visit our store where you can choose from over 200 hours of video-based training. Alternatively, you can contact us to discuss any specific training requirements you may have.